Dear colleagues, thank you all for coming to this webinar entitled Psychosocial Characteristics of Potential Participants in Biobanking, presented by Jakub Pawlikowski. This webinar is being recorded and will be made publicly available and linked to our knowledge base shortly after it. A moderated short session of questions and answers will follow the presentation. I want to introduce quickly our presenter, Jakub Pawlikowski. He works at the Department of Ethics and Human Philosophy at the University of Lublin in Poland, and his research interests are public health, ethics, and law. Today, he will be presenting a psychosocial study on potential participants in biobanking. Without further ado, I welcome you, Jakub. The floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Monica. Good afternoon to everyone. This is the first seminar this year, so I would like to wish everyone a happy and healthy new year and warmly greetings from cold Poland. So today we have about 20 degrees below zero. So it's good that we don't have to go anywhere to give or to listen to the lecture. So thank you very much for organizing this event. So why this topic? Why this title? There is a lot of reason. We know that during the past few decades, there has been a dynamic development of biobanks, and we know that the role of biobanks, all of these things, but we know also that biobanks require a large number of participants. And advances of biomedical research based on biobanks are highly dependent on the successful recruitment and participation of human subjects. We know also that each biobank exists in a unique geographical, social, cultural, and historical context. Also in Europe, we can observe this difference between Northern and Southern Europe, West, East Europe. And donation is a complex process determined by people's knowledge, opinions on biobanks, trust toward the government and research institutions, beliefs, subjective beliefs, convictions about the expected benefits, about the human body, human tissues, organs, but also is dependent on the access to the information about the research, who is doing research, where they are doing, about the purpose of the research. And so a lot of cultural, social, and sometimes subjective psychological factors can influence on the decision regarding willingness to donate biosamples and data to biobank. However, in humanistic and social considerations on biobanks dominate ethical and legal issues regarding informed consent, commercial use, ownership, biosharing, incidental findings, privacy protection. I think also that in our team dominate more this normative approach, the problems regarding ethical in the sense of normative rules and legal problems. And there is much less sociological and particularly psychological analysis considering factors influencing donations. So for this reason, it is crucial to know the attitudes of the public toward biobanks and psychosocial factors influencing respondents' willingness to donate. Knowledge about psychosocial attitudes toward biobanking may increase the effectiveness of the recruitment process. It was the statement was the conclusion of one of the systematic literature review. So it is also very practical issues. So the plan for today, for this lecture, it will be divided into two parts. In the first, I will present sociological literature review, which was carried out by me and my colleagues from another university in Poland. We published it 2 years ago, and based on this, we planned research, social research in Poland, and I will present in the second part some results connected with psychological factors. I have an information about the network connection difficulties, but you can hear me or not?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay, so it's all good. Thank you. So just we start from the first part, literature review. So we searched the database Medline PubMed using a combination of keywords biobank, biobanking, tissue bank, donors, public opinion, social attitudes, and participation in the research. And to ensure the systematic aspect of the research, it was carried out twice. It was limited to the material published in the 21st century, so it was limited to last 20 years. The initial search identified more than 1,000 publications, which were then selected on the basis of their titles and abstracts. Articles were included if they reported empirical studies on social attitudes toward biobanking, were written in English and published in peer-reviewed journals. Papers were excluded if they focused on the theoretical aspects of biobanking or did not report on social attitudes toward biobanking. Also, comments, opinions, or letters to the editors were also excluded. So this inclusion and exclusion criteria and additional reviews of the references of the selected articles yielded 61 articles which were read and analyzed. So we identified different type of conducted research. Most research involved quantitative studies, while 12 were qualitative, included 7 focus groups and 5 structured interviews. 6 studies used mixed methods. Additionally, 6 systematic research reviews were included. 2 studies, we found 2 studies described pan-European studies, and 15 were conducted in different European countries from United Kingdom, Sweden, Finland, Netherlands, Italy, Poland. 10 studies were conducted in Asia, and 4 studies were conducted in African countries like Nigeria, Uganda, and Egypt, and 1 in Australia. So as the studies for the analysis, selected studies were very heterogeneous in terms of research design and goals and methodologies. Also, it was attitudes to different sample size, the different types of biobanks. So we decided to go more into quantitative analysis, more into qualitative synthesis, not quantitative. Yeah? So we identified main motives in these results, and 8 main themes we identified. The first was public knowledge about biobanking. Second, public views on biobanking. Also perceived benefits and the risk of biobanking's preferred type of consent, demographical characteristic of potential donors, but today I would like to focus more on three topics, three motives: willingness to donate, donors' motivations, and trust toward biobanks. But the rest you can read in the article. And the willingness to donation. Based on this review, we can say that better knowledge and positive opinions on biobanks correlate positively with respondents' willingness to donate. For instance, in Scandinavian countries where the knowledge about biobanks is highest, more than 80% of Finns and 86% of Swedes declared such willingness, while in Greece only 5–10% of Greeks did. In other studies, this percentage oscillated between 41 and 81%. So it is very different, but it correlates with the better recognizing in society of the biobanks, or the time, the period in which biobanks are active, developed in the country. Respondents' willingness to donate was determined also by the type of donated tissues, as the public were especially likely to donate blood, cancer, skin, and kidney tissues, but were less eager to donate eyes, brain, lungs, heart, of course, after death, yeah, or germ cells after in vitro. So we can see that people are more or less sensitive, dependent on the kind of tissue which we want to collect. Respondents were also more prone to donate their blood. For example, in one study, people were open to donate their blood in 82%, saliva or sputum a little less, 77%, urine 70%, but the organs of their deceased relatives only 25%. Also, research involving embryos, a combination of human samples with animals, cloning, stem cells research, and genetic engineering were much more controversial and less open for donation, or less open for participating in research where those kind of tissues were used. Research conducted, so in many research, controversial research, where the purpose is controversial, people are less open for participating. Also, many respondents objected to research with stigmatization, which could stigmatize, for example, on mental disorders, intelligence, homosexuality, or presumed eugenic or commercial potential. Also, respondents' willingness to donate was dependent on access to the information about the research, as many donors wanted to know who was conducting the research and where the research was being conducted, what was its purpose, who would have access to research results, and where and how the samples would be stored. Donation may be further encouraged by anonymization of samples and by possibility to withdraw from the research. And other factors include the positive recommendation by the bioethical committees or research ethics committee, dependent on the country. In African or Asian countries, also religious assent sometimes would be important, and the convictions about the safety of procurement of tissues. A few studies indicate that socio-demographical factors such as education level, socioeconomic status can play a role in willingness to donation. More favorable towards donation are people in the middle age and younger, with higher education, higher economic status, who lived in cities and had children. And on the other side, being a member of ethnic minorities is associated with lower willingness. But what can discourage donors to collaborate, or potential donors to collaborate? The donors may be discouraged by inadequate knowledge on biobanking, disapproval of the purpose of research, concerns over the safety of the data, fear over the invasive nature of the sampling procedure. Also, when we asked people in focus studies, potential donors, that one of the barriers we identified was the fear of pain, the fear of injections, of needles, sometimes the fear over infection with human immunodeficiency virus, but also detection of genetic predispositions and use of the sample in line with donors' values. So the respondents wanted to control their samples in a sense. Geographical distance from the biobanks also sometimes was a barrier for some donors. And the second topic in this literature review, which I would like to present, are participants' motivations. So in a majority of research, most donors are driven by altruistic motives. In most research, the most important motivation was a general feeling of duty and desire to contribute to the common good. Other important motives included helping others and helping future generations. Many wished to help generate new knowledge and develop new therapies. Others expected benefits to their families, relatives, or ethnic groups, or desired medical service and research results. It was especially important in poorer populations. For example, in American studies, more than 80% of respondents declared eagerness to help others. 75% believed donation would increase knowledge on many diseases. 61% hoped that research could help them or their families in the future. So the majority, I would like to underline that in this review, majority of respondents had altruistic motives. Although respondents propounded for the social benefits of biobanking over personal ones, they also believed that donation should benefit both parties. So the main motives is altruistic, but they also believe that their attitudes, their will to help to or to participate in biobanking will be good not only to biobanks, but also to other people, to society, maybe also to donors in the future. But rarely did they expect financial gratification. But instead, they demanded information on the research results. It was the very important point. For example, almost 89% of Americans wanted to be informed about the research results. Among Hawaii inhabitants, the desire to be informed about research results was similar, 88%. In Netherlands, 78%. In China, 74%. In Egypt, almost 90%. But in particular, the donors were interested in genetic research results. So we should take it into account when we are considering, for example, social campaigns, or we try to capture new participants, new persons as donors to our biobanks. And the next topic is trust, the review of articles regarding trust toward biobanks. Most respondents trusted scientific institutions more than commercial, governmental, or insurance institutions. For instance, in the United States, 92% of American respondents trusted academic and medical researchers, while 80% trusted government researchers and 75% trusted pharmaceutical company researchers. The same scam was identified in Canadian society, where people more trusted academic research than researcher financed by the private sectors or private biobanks. And the difference was very big. So almost 50% trusted academic researchers, and researchers financed by the private sectors were trusted in 19%. Research worked in private biobanks, only 6%. Among Scottish respondents, 97% trusted university hospitals, while only 6% trusted for-profit organizations. Similar results, similar scam was identified in China and other countries. And additionally, more people trusted national institutions than foreign biobanks. Also in Poland, we identified this discrepancies, this difference. I will show on the next slide. But trust toward biobanks correlates positively with the willingness to donate, preference for broad consent, and decreases perception of the risk related to the privacy and confidentiality of samples. Interestingly, lack of trust was significantly higher among ethnic minorities, African Americans, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, which resulted from the negative experience, I think, with the history. And as I mentioned, in research which we carried out some years ago, we also identified this difference between biobanks operated in country and abroad, or biobanks organized by public institutions or organized by private institutions. So as you can see, people accepted the biobanks or the access to samples by researchers from the university or a hospital where the sample was donated, or by researchers from other national public entities. Researchers from foreign public entities were a little less accepted, but we can say that that more than half of people can accept it, but for researchers from commercial entities or from foreign commercial entities, Polish or foreign commercial institutions are trusted less than accessed by police, secret service, and others services. So it's a quite big difference in the level of trust, and yeah, I think that it is important barriers, and we should remember about it when we develop biosharing recommendation guidelines or policies. And we also identified that more open were younger, higher people with higher economic status, higher trust, people living in cities, or males. But this group was representative, but only 600 per person. But now I would like to show the results of our psychological research. It was conducted last year, so we still we are preparing the article to publication. I hope that this month it will be sent, but I would like to share with you some selected results. So in the review of previous sociological research, was found that donation is a complex process determined by people knowledge, positive opinion, biobanks, beliefs, trust. However, the simple questions were used in the above studies, mostly with single one questions measurement. There is a lack of in-depth psychological analysis, particularly regarding basic psychological variables such as personality, preferred values, or a different kind of trust that may relate to willingness to donation. So the aim of our study was the analysis of the relationship between selected psychological variables and willingness to donate biological material to biobanks in the Polish population. It was hypothesized that the willingness to donation is associated with some kinds of trust, with personality traits, meaning in life, and the preferred value system. The research was carried out on a group of 1,100 people, over adult people over 18 years. The sample was of random nature, and the selection of respondents was calculated on the basis of them being representative of the Polish population in the following areas: sex or gender of respondents, age of respondents, number of respondents living in the voivodeship in the province, place of residence, level of education. The sample was primarily selected using random route as a default method, employing the computer-aided personal interview technique. We collaborated with an entity which is specialized in this social survey. Response rate was 72%. So the maximum acceptable statistical error of measurement was 4%, with confidence interval of 95%. And the questionnaire consisted of several parts relating to willingness to donate the sample to biobank and psychosocial variables. Participation, of course, was voluntary. Here we can see a sample characteristic. This sample was representative for Polish population, so our conclusions will be valid for the whole population of our country, of course, with the correction for statistical bias, statistical error. What we measured. So the willingness to donate biological material to the biobank was measured using following question. Please imagine that a biobank from the nearest provincial city operating at a medical university asks you to donate a blood sample for research. Approximately 30 milliliters of blood, 3 large tablespoons will be drawn, and an interview will be made on health and disease-related issues such as lifestyle, like eating habits, exercise, stimulant use, sleep, environment, drugs used, medical history, etc. The collected samples and data will then be made available to scientists for research in an anonymized form. It means the person who is a donor cannot be identified. Would you give a blood sample to a biobank in the situation described above? And the respondents were asked to rate the willingness to donate a sample to the biobank on a 5-point scale from 1, definitely not, to 5, definitely yes. And then other measures were personality. Personality were measured using the TIPI questionnaire published by Gosling, Renfro, Swam almost 20 years ago. It consists of 10 items that are rated on a scale from 1 to 7. And this method is based on the concept of the Big Five, the very popular concept in psychology, and assesses of 5 dimensions of personality: emotional stability, extroversion, agreeableness, openness to experience, and consciousness. And the next measured variable was trust. Trust was measured in 3 aspects: trust in doctors, trust in scientists, and trust in other people. And the respondents were asked to answer questions: write your trust in doctors, in scientists, in other people, in the scale from 0 to 10. To be consistent with others' psychological research in this topic. Also, we measured tendency to risk with 1 question: meaning in life, based on the meaning in life questionnaire. It is in this concept is included also the satisfaction of life, and also we measured preferred values. The hierarchy of preferred values was measured with a list of 17 different values, like safety, personal development, life, religion, tradition, a lot of, I will show it on the next. We took this list of values from popular surveys carried out in Poland by public survey entities. The respondents were asked to respond to what extent are the following values important for you in your life. The study included also demographic data, gender, age, education, size of the place of residence, and so on. And our results. We divided the analysis of the results into 4 parts. In the first step, the level of willingness to donate samples to the biobank was analyzed. In the second step, the relationship between the willingness and socio-demographic variables was assessed. The third step described the link between the willingness and psychological characteristics. And the last part, we analyzed the psychological variables that could best explain the willingness to donate biological material to biobanks by regression analysis. So we can say that willingness to donate samples to biobank varies. Approximately half of respondents declare that they are ready to donate. Rather, yes, it was about 30%, definitely yes, 70%. It was a little more than 7 years ago when I did a study on a little smaller group, but representative group, where was about 12% of persons declared that they are definitely yes open for donation. Now we have a little more, about 5%. Maybe is thanks to the efforts of our BBMRI node and the BBMRI ERIC policy in the European Union. But persons unwilling to donate are still quite a big part. They constitute about 28% of respondents. If we summarize, definitely not, and rather not. And about a quarter of the surveyed people don't have a clear opinion. In the analysis of demographic data, no statistically significant relationships were found between the willingness to donate samples to a biobank and such variables like variables as gender, age, the place of living, education, self-assessment, material conditions, and self-assessment of the health conditions. It was surprising a little because a lot of other research, other researchers observed this relationships, but in our research we didn't observe it. And now the willingness to donate and selected psychological variables. Some of the tested psychological variables turned out to be factors significantly related to the willingness to donate biological material to a biobank. The willingness to submit samples to a biobank was significantly positively associated with all types of trust measured: trust in doctors, trust in scientists, trust in other people. The strongest relationship was observed for trust in doctors and scientists. Another important factor positively related to the willingness to donate samples was the tendency to risk, but not personality, any personality trait related to willingness to donation. And also the satisfaction with life or searching for meaning in life was not related to willingness. And the links between the willingness and to donate and preferred values. Regarding the preferred values, the significant positive correlations was observed between the willingness to donate and such values as work, helping others, travels, personal development, tradition, and knowledge, but not health or life. It was very interesting for us, and it should be discussed later. No statistically significant relationships were found between the willingness to donate samples and personality traits included in the Big Five model, as I mentioned. And the last part of analysis of our results was the regression analysis. In the regression analysis, this analysis was performed in order to extract variables that best determine the willingness to donate samples to the biobank. The explained variable was the willingness to donate the sample, and the explanatory variables were personality traits, types of trust, tendency to risk, sense and searching of meaning in life, and preferred values. Statistically significant model was obtained as a result, in which the willingness to donate biological material to biobank is best predicted by trust in scientists, trust in doctors, as well as preferred values such as personal development and tradition. Very interesting values because they are in a very different place in the area of values. Yeah, personal development. Yeah, we can associate with very modern attitudes, and the tradition with very conservative attitudes. But both values are the most important among all measured values for shaping positive attitudes toward biobanking. It was consistent with other results we obtained when we asked what would particularly encourage you to donate a sample to biobank. So performing genetic tests for disease risk or performing genetic tests for genealogical purposes was the most attracting factors for people. It was even a slightly stronger motivator than the opportunity or possibility of performing laboratory tests such as glucose or cholesterol. But in national and international legal acts, there is insufficient legal regulations related to the functioning of genetic genealogy database due to the protection of privacy. But I think that it should be more analyzed how we can wide the services performed by biobanks and include genetics tests more widely and offer this for more people. It can be very important factors for attracting new donors to biobanks. And conclusions. So we are aware of the limitations of our research. The strong side of our research is a representative population group, but the weak side is, of course, the fact that they were conducted on respondents who may be only a potential donors and not on a group of real or actual participants in biobanking. This will be a challenge for future research. And human participation in different types of biomedical research is not only human biological material biobanking problems, because we have a lot of signals from other areas of medical and nature research that inadequate involvement in biomedical research may affect the power of the study, increasing the likelihood of increasing type second error in statistical analysis and adversely influencing the generalizability of results to the general population. Therefore, it is so important to know the important factors that can improve participation in scientific research, including biobanking, but not only limited to biobanking. So an interesting conclusion is that the willingness to donate correlates strongly with certain psychological factors, with others the correlation is weaker or there is no correlation. Selected psychological characteristics such as tendency to risk or preferred values like tradition of or personal development may be important in shaping social and individual attitudes toward biobanking. In our study, it was surprising that personality traits, meaning in life, satisfaction with life, did not play a significant role, as weak correlations in those variables have been observed in smaller groups. The relationship with values is interesting, especially since the value of health and life is not as strongly correlated with the will to donate as the value of personal development and tradition. Maybe in a society, biobanks are associated more with the development of medicine, with development of science, or development of society, or metaphorically more with scientific adventure rather than personal health and life. So in the information message to potential participants, it is also worth considering a reference to the values preferred in the group, in the group which can be a potential donors, using appropriate metaphors like scientific adventure, or the donation can be a traveling inside the cell, commitment to development of science and society, expanding knowledge, helping others. But we should more use this metaphor based on this adventure maybe, or traveling inside a human body. And important findings is the strong association with the value of tradition, which should be wider used by creating and sharing genealogical databases associated with biobanks. Genealogical genetic tests offerings can also attract more people to cooperate with biobanks and even initiate intergenerational cooperation with children, grandchildren, etc. But of course, we need adequate regulation, legal and ethical regulation for privacy protection. However, the most important factor shaping the will to cooperate with biobanks seems to be trust, especially in scientists and doctors. Therefore, it seems important to base in the social communication strategy on greater cooperation with researchers using human biological samples and with doctors, for example, using in campaigns, social campaigns, family doctors. For example, in Estonia, as we know, the population biobank based on a very effective cooperation with family physicians. And to summarizing, it is important to build a trust. How we can build a trust to create opportunities for participants to express their expectations and fears, give clear and communicable information, give a feeling of control, using different communication channels, communication with representatives of patients' organizations, local community leaders, other stakeholders, taking into account the social and cultural diversity of our societies, engagement of donors in biobank promotion, underline in campaigns that biobanking is painless, harmless, and brings scientific benefits, and updating information about research and its results, for example, on the websites. And the last, so maybe we need to shift our perspective a little from the very normative perspective when we are thinking about donor or participants, more toward person perspectives, where we see the participants as a person with a very rich, very different world of values, subjective convictions, cultural beliefs, and from only obtaining consent to mutual communications, from external norms, legal or ethical external, toward more internal duty and values in our communicates, in our information messages, and from rules to virtues. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Jakub, for this great presentation on your study. Now it's time to open the floor to some questions from the audience. We have already some. I will read them from the chat box. One of them is there any difference among parents' willingness to donate samples from children? Do you have any data or literature about that?
Could you repeat at the beginning of your question?
Yeah, is there any difference among parents' willingness to donate samples from their children?
No, because our study was carried out on adults, so we don't know the perspective of children. I know one study in Warsaw University, but I know that it is carrying out now, but I don't know the results. So I don't know. Also, in our review, we have not identified such research where the difference between children and parents were analyzed. So I don't know. It will be a good task for future research.
Yeah, that could be great for future research. We
Yeah.
have another question. It says, considering that trust in physicians and scientists has been a major component associated with willingness to donate, how do you think COVID-19 pandemic might have influenced the research findings?
Oh, I think that the COVID pandemic can be an opportunity to promote biobanking, to promote collaboration with scientific institutions. We can see also in Poland, we can observe that people are changing their attitudes toward physicians, toward scientists during the pandemic. That the prestige, social prestige of doctors, of scientists is higher. Of course, for scientists, it is not new because in Polish population, scientists are at the highest place in the social prestige hierarchy. However, physicians were in the fifth or sixth place, but now are in the better place. So I think that now people can see that science, that medicine connected with science, yeah, because it's also we should remember that scientific medicine is the concept developed more in 18th, 19th century. Yeah? The medical practice was present in human civilization during the thousands of years, but the science is a little shorter phenomena. So this connection, medicine and science during the COVID pandemic, it would be a very good point for better collaboration, for social campaigns, for changing social attitudes toward more willingness to participate in biobanking, in scientific research, in clinical trials. So I see the pandemic as an opportunity. I know that it is also a very difficult experience for us, but we can we can use this opportunity for better life in the future.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that trust in medical institutions is already changing in the middle of the pandemic?
It's difficult questions, yeah, because yeah, from one side we can see that a lot of doctors, nurses, diagnosticians, paramedics are in the front line of the battles with COVID. Yeah. On the other side, a lot of hospitals are closed. A lot of people inside the hospital, a lot of patients are isolated. Yeah, they don't have a contact with their families. So it is a very hard experience. But generally, it depends on the organization of healthcare system. For example, in Poland, we have big problems with the coordination of healthcare system. The problem is from the 20 years. The system is very disintegrated. So, and now all the organizational problems are on the surface of this COVID pandemic situation. But generally, in my opinion, people are more trusted towards the person, like doctors, scientists, nurses, more trusted toward the person than toward the system. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jakub. We have one more question, maybe the last question. It reads, do you think there is a link between understanding of risks associated with personal genomics in Polish population and your findings that suggest interest in personal genomic findings and genealogy?
Could you repeat this, because it's a very complicated question?
Indeed. Do you think there is a link between understanding of risks associated with personal genomics and your findings that suggest that people have a personal interest in genomic findings and their own genealogy?
This is complicated relationships. I think that people in Poland are, with every year, more interested in their roots, in their family roots, and this. So after the transformation, when during the communist period, new society was built, people are coming back to their roots in 17th century, 18th century, 19th century. We are searching for the information about the grandparents, and I think that this is the main motive of interesting of genealogical tests, and I think that they don't aware of the risk connected with genomics analysis. Because in Poland we don't have so many opportunities to do such analysis, so it is not a very popular topic in public opinion. So I think that this willingness to collaborate connected with genealogical tests is more determined by people interested in the past, in the family roots, in the relatives, and the risks connected with privacy is underrepresented in their mind. Yeah, but maybe that our society will be more open for the risk. I don't know. Yeah, we need to test it in the next research.
Yeah, this needs a follow-up research from time to time to see what is changing, right? Okay, well, thank you very much, Jakub. Thank you all for attending this webinar. We are very happy that you were all here with us. And yeah, we close this session now. That will be made publicly available very soon to all of you. Thank you again, Jakub, for this wonderful presentation on your study.
Thank you very much.